Today I want to talk about some methods that scammers use to steal your money. The first method I'm going to discuss is check fraud. Now let me be clear. Check fraud is one of the easiest scams out there, but here's the catch. It's also one of the easiest scams to get indicted for. So don't take this information and think you've just discovered the key to financial freedom. Trust me, it's not that. The first step to cashing a fake check is obtaining information. The easiest way to get this information is by stealing it. For example, mail carriers have become prime targets. It's like hunting season for scammers. These fraudsters are robbing and extorting postal workers daily, taking their keys, which gives them access to mailboxes full of checks and personal information. This type of theft is incredibly risky because now scammers are stepping out of the white-collar crime world and into physical robbery, which comes with a whole new set of charges. And while this is happening, the U.S. Postal Service and law enforcement agencies seem to be turning a blind eye. Lawmakers claim they're doing something about it, but in reality, it feels like no one is really addressing the problem. It's almost as if some people in power are in bed with the scammers, getting a cut of the profits from these operations. Another method that fraudsters use is the inside job. They'll get jobs at banks, and if they manage to work their way up the corporate ladder, they gain access to tons of personal data. With that information, they can pull off check fraud with ease. Having a respectable job at a bank not only gives them cover, but also opens the door to a treasure trove of data they can use to cash fake checks. And then, of course, there's Telegram. Scammers love Telegram because it's like a five-star buffet of personal information. For as little as $25, scammers can buy all the data they need to pull off their schemes. Telegram has become a hub for scammers to exchange stolen information, making it easier than ever to commit fraud. Now, the process of cooking checks has been around for a long time. Some of the best fraudsters out there are so skilled at Photoshop that they create templates for other scammers to use. These templates can help scammers make $10,000 in a single day. But in order to pull off the scam, they need an account to deposit the money into. And here's where things get even more interesting. These days, scammers don't need to network with other criminals to find the right kind of bank accounts. Instead, they use open-ups. So what's an open-up? It's a bank account opened with stolen identities for the sole purpose of committing fraud. These accounts are used for all types of scams: check fraud, credit card fraud, debit card fraud, you name it. Scammers even age these accounts, letting them sit for a while to appear legitimate, then sell them for anywhere between $100 and $10,000 depending on the bank and the quality of the stolen identity. Some open-ups even come with fake IDs, making it even easier for scammers to cash out. More advanced scammers set up shell accounts, which are business accounts created to mimic real, legitimate companies. This method took off during the pandemic when the PPP loans showed everyone how easy it was to create a fake business. These shell accounts are used to deposit large sums of money from fake checks, making it hard to trace the scam back to the fraudster. But before we get into recruitment, let me mention a simpler method that's been gaining popularity in recent years. Instead of creating fake checks from scratch using Photoshop, some scammers now steal legitimate checks directly from the mail. They then soak these checks in a mixture of isopropyl alcohol and acetone, which removes the ink without damaging the paper. Once the check is blank, they fill in their own details, deposit it into their open-up, and cash out. Many banks allow checks to be deposited through mobile apps now, making this process even easier for scammers. They don't even have to step foot inside a bank. Now let's talk about recruitment. To cash out, scammers often recruit elderly people. Think about it. No one is going to suspect grandma of check fraud, right? These elderly recruits go into the bank, cash the fake check, and walk away without anyone suspecting a thing. But recruiting is one of the hardest parts of this method, which is why many scammers prefer the acetone method I just mentioned. It's faster, easier, and less risky. Another popular method scammers use today is to launder money by purchasing money orders or cashier's checks. The more tech-savvy scammers will even convert stolen money into cryptocurrency, which, if done correctly, is virtually untraceable. But here's the reality. Every scam comes with consequences. You might think you've got everything planned out, but surveillance is everywhere. Cameras are on ATMs, in stores, and even on those Bitcoin machines you didn't think were recording you. Scammers often plan every detail of their operation, but many forget the most important step: altering their appearance. You'd be surprised how many scammers get caught because they walked up to an ATM or a bank in full view of a camera. Even tiny cameras inside ATMs capture their faces, and that footage is used against them in court. I've looked into countless check fraud cases, and in almost every one, the prosecution had footage from the ATM showing the scammer's face. It's unbelievable how careless some of these criminals are. They're practically handing themselves over to law enforcement. Now, I know scamming has become the wave right now. Everyone wants to be a swiper or a scammer, but they don't realize the risks that come with it. Many scammers live in constant fear, looking over their shoulders, clearing their house military style every time they come home, terrified someone they scammed might be waiting to retaliate. This is the reality of the scammer lifestyle, and it's not glamorous. And let me make this clear. Scamming individuals, especially those who don't have much to begin with, is not something to be proud of. Stealing from families, taking food out of children's mouths, it's petty. If you're going to scam, at least target institutions, not people who are already struggling. When you steal someone's last $1,000 because you wanted a new flat-screen TV, you're causing real harm. So to all the scammers out there listening, I want you to think about what you're doing. You're ruining people's lives and adding unnecessary stress to their already difficult situations. I hope every one of you who scams individuals gets caught. Scamming someone for $10,000 doesn't make you smart or clever. There are people out there pulling off billion-dollar schemes. If you're stealing from individuals, you're just a small-time criminal. And let's be real, most of you aren't tough either. The moment you get caught, you'll snitch on everyone involved to get a reduced sentence. In the end, scamming isn't worth it, and I hope you realize that before it's too late.